Good morning, brothers and sisters. Good to be here with so many good Teamsters and people who are concerned about their pensions and Teamster pensions. A little bit of background: Teamsters for a Democratic Union, TDU, has been involved with improving, watchdogging, protecting pensions for decades. We have fought to improve and defend pensions. We've ended up suing some of the funds sometimes, including the central states, multiple times on issues like the reemployment rule, on providing financial reports on a quarterly basis to members. We just published the last one a week ago, for example. And we fought to fund when central states, which anyone on this call, more than 16 years seniority, you were in central states, you know that. When they wanted to slash benefits, we were in the forefront of that battle, along with our allies in Washington, the Pension Rights Center. Fred Zuckerman played an important role in that. And we sparked an independent grassroots movement to save pensions a decade ago. And that movement worked diligently. And 2 years ago, the Butch-Lewis Act became law, and protecting the pensions of millions of families in this country, not just Teamsters, but in particular the Central States Fund. Pensions are one of the best things about having a Teamster contract. You work hard at UPS for decades, you earn a good pension. If you were at FedEx, you'd get peanuts compared to what you get at UPS. It's a selling point for the union, so it's very, very important. On the screen is the so-called SPD. It's a term of art, the summary plan description. This little booklet is the sort of handy Bible of your plan. Everyone has a right to it. We got the URL on the screen. It'll probably be made available to everyone so you could look through it. Every pension plan must, by law, publish a summary plan description, and it must be accurate and understandable to workers, and it generally is. I think this one is. This fund doesn't make it easy for you. They're not real user-friendly. It lives in UPS's headquarters. Try calling them up and get answers. Good luck. But you can get answers in writing, and there is a form there to provide that. So we're going to take a few minutes and give the basics on the fund. That's not why we can't do a full class on that. But we're going to do some basics so we all have the background when we talk about fighting to improve pensions. Let's take a look at the next slide. Shows you in Article 34, page 102 of the labor contract, which is online at the Teamsters International Teamster.org site and TDU.org. You can see it. You can go to page 102 and you will see your pensions right there in the contract. There they are. 30 and out is $3,800. 31 and out is $3,900 in between those bottom two there. So that's the early retirement benefits, and they're listed right in the contract. If you read that entire contract from the first page to the 180th or whatever, you will not see the benefits of any other full-time plan, zero. The other 20 plans or so, not in the book. Where are their pensions determined? Their pensions are set by the trustees of those various funds, whether it's in Central Pennsylvania, the Western Conference, New England, Chicago 705, and the various funds different from this one. What it will say in the contract is that the contract will provide for increased money that UPS pays those funds. Typically right now this varies from fund to fund, even local to local. Sometimes money has gone to health and welfare diversion or something. About $13 an hour is paid in on all straight time hours in the other funds. That's a ballpark figure. Now you multiply 13 by 2,080 hours in a year and you get 27,000 bucks. That's a pretty good shot. That's what's funding other people's pensions. Your pension is not funded that way. It's just paid by UPS. They don't have to put any amount in the pot. They have to put in enough to cover the pensions that you're guaranteed. This is a huge difference. I'm going to give you one tiny example. Suppose you're in California and you work at UPS for 4 years and then you quit. 13 bucks an hour, 4 years, it's over $100,000. Where'd the money go? you didn't get a pension because 5 years to vest in all these plans. You got nothing. The $100,000 went to fund and boost the pensions of all the other Teamsters in the West. 4 years in this plan, you don't get anything. You didn't invest. Where'd the money go? Went into management's pocket. That's the answer. Didn't go to anyone else. They didn't put in any money. That's the end of your story. It's just an example that while this fund can benefit you, because you can see exactly what you're getting in the contract, it's a benefit to the corporation as well. This chart, it's a reasonable approach, but what we're saying is these numbers are lower than other pensions. And the next slide will show that. Before we go on though, a member pointed something out to me that I just want to say. Brother John Wagner, a lot of smart members are looking at this in Minnesota. In 1997, the 30 and out pension for everyone, if you were working then on this call, was $3,000. Today, 26 years later, it's $3,800. You're thinking that hasn't remotely kept up with inflation, and you're right. Furthermore, he pointed out it hasn't even kept up with thinking of it in terms of the wages. In 1997, $3,000 would have replaced 89% of a full-time worker's 40-hour week salary. Today, 55%, from 89 to 55 relative to wages. So it hasn't really kept up. Let's look at the next slide just for a few quick examples. It's hard to compare all the various plans because they all have different rules. Some of them have very parallel rules on there, like New York and New Jersey, and you can see that they are better. Instead of 30 and out being $3,800, it's $47 or $47.50. You'd rather have that $1,000 extra, of course. The Western Conference Fund, notice how it gives a high figure, 5,000 to 6,000, but it's kind of vague. There is no 30 and out in the Western Conference. It's based on accrual. They also have, they don't call it 80 and out, they call it pure 80. No, you don't have to work 80 years. It's years plus service. So this is the other largest fund. There are two giant funds and many smaller funds that cover like New York, New Jersey, Central PA, upstate New York, etc. The other giant fund, they use 80 and it is age plus years. If you're 53 and you have 27 years of service in the fund, you made 80, 53 plus 27. You can get your full pension, and that accrual pension pays over $5,000 right now on average to people retiring, far superior. So those are important examples. Let's look at the next slide. Now, one of the things we want to cover in just the next few minutes, I'm not going to talk too long, but is accrual. And most of you understood that first slide, but some people might go, what the hell is this? This is page 100 in the labor contract, Article 34, page 100. Every year you get an accrual. This is how much your pension is improved that year. So if you work 5 more years, 5 times 175 is 875. Your pension would go up $875 a month. Sounds nice. Now this is confusing because you're thinking, is that 3,800 going up? No, it's a whole different method. There are 2 ways to evaluate your pension, and the fund is going to pay you the higher of the 2, whichever works better for you. Let's look at the next one. The next one, look at the history of the accrual. This fund was started on January 1, 2008, and the accrual was $132 a year. So over the years, the union has bargained it up. But notice the last 10 years are all 170 or 175. It's pretty friggin' puny increase. It's plateaued. It's not good. Then down at the bottom, the annual accrual this year in the Western Fund, the other big fund, is $350, which is conveniently double 175. Well, you're not half as good. You're just as good. And it illustrates an issue. And we'll talk just a little bit more on accrual. Let's look at the next one, what the impact of the accrual is. So those numbers we just looked at, if you add them up, this is Annie. We'll call her Annie Accrual, Sister Accrual. She's a package car driver. She started on January 1, 2009. It's a hypothetical example. So if you add up all those numbers we just saw, her accrued benefit right now is $2,473. Annie's thinking she might work another 30 years and get her 30 years in. How much will her accrual be? Looking forward. Well, if it stays 175, we add 15 more years times 175, we get $5,098 a month. That would be good. Although 15 years from now, you're thinking inflation, it may not be too good. What if the accrual went up to 250? Look at the difference. What if it went up to 300? Look at the difference. You can see that the difference between 175 and 300 is a huge difference. Your pension goes from about 5,000 to about 7,000. So the accrual can be extremely important, especially going forward. Now, we obviously don't expect this number 175 to instantly jump to 300 in a new contract. But if it's going up over this contract, the next contract, and so on, that could be done. Let's look at the next slide. Okay, why accrual matters. That was the first reason it matters, looking forward to really boost pensions. Here, this is actually from, I'm kind of selling the summary plan description booklet. If you look in page 5 of your pension plans booklet, the summary plan description, we got the URL for everyone to look at it. You will see Sarah, that's what they call her, hypothetical person. Sarah retired 5 months ago, the beginning of this year. After 22 years of working, and Sarah is 55, how much does she get? Now, it's interesting. If she was 62, what would she get? She would get $3,871 down below. That's the this is another term of art. Normal retirement age in this plan is 62. So in using the accrual method, that's your normal retirement age. Now remember, the early retirement, that's any age by definition, 30 and out. You can be, if you started when you're 20, you can get 30 and out when you're 50. But notice how with just 22 years, she is getting more than the 30 and out Teamster by the accrual if she were 62. She's not. In their hypothetical example, she's 55. So you have to lop off, and this is very standard in pension plans, 6% a year. So if she was 61, she'd only take off 6%. But she's 55, she has to take off 42%. She gets 22.45. Remember, that's for just 22 years. Had she chosen, looked at that early and out chart, her pension would have been $900. So the accrual is very important. I'm going to venture a guess here that at least half the people on this call are going to retire under the accrual. Why? Either one, they're going to work till they're nearly 62 and build up a higher pension, or two, they're going to retire and not qualify for 30 and out. So they're going to have to be like Sarah and use the accrual. So the accrual becomes very important. Let's look at the next one, the last thing I'm going to talk about here. Oh, one other thing on Sarah. Let's go back to Sarah. Regress one slide just for a second. Notice how it says CSPF in the top line going across, Central States Pension Fund. Sarah had 8 years under the Central States Pension Plan. She's actually getting 2 checks. Everyone on this call that has 16 or more, that you started before January 1, 2008, you get 2 checks. Now, nobody gets checks anymore. They use electronic transfer. But you get 2 payments. You really don't need to be concerned about that because your UPS is guaranteeing your total pension. Whatever Central States pays, they pay the rest. When that thing says $3,800, if Central States pays $1,000, they're going to give you $2,800. So it looks a little more complicated than it is. Final thing on this. Suppose Sarah had been a part-timer for 5 years before all this. She would get a 3rd payment. Your part-time plan, sadly, is completely independent. It's as if it was a separate company. Now, it won't pay her much. 5 years, 25 years ago or so in that plan, it'll be a tiny check, but it would even be a third pension. Let's go on to the final one here that I'm going to talk about, which is, here's the punchline. We can make UPS deliver better pensions. It's in the contract. It's in Article 34. You're going to see it. You're going to know it. You're going to spread the word. You're going to have other people seeing it and knowing it. Increase the 30 and out and all the early retirement benefits and increase the accrual. 2 things to do. They're on 2 pages in the contract. So it's fairly simple. It's direct. And the negotiators are bargaining for a higher pension. There are rank and filers on the bargaining committee who are in this plan with you. The company needs to see that people care about this. They know people care about 22.4. They've got the message. The memo reached the corporation. There's going to be 22.4 will be eliminated or there'll be a strike on August 1. They need to hear, oh, it isn't just the negotiating committee talking about pensions. The workers are going to reject any contract. The workers are mad. The workers want a better pension. They don't want to have the lowest pension in the biggest plan. So that's what we're talking about today. And thanks much for being on the call.
We're going to close this with some questions and answers. And what questions do you have in the queue right now for us, Scott?
Great, thanks, Sean. So we're going to pitch some questions back to our expert here, Ken Paff. So a couple questions from the Q&A. Let's start here. What about those of us who won't be able to work to the 30 or 35 and out? I may only be able to get to 20 years before I have to retire. What do I get in the IBT-UPS pension? Ken.
My apologies, I was slow to unmute. This is a good question. If you think back to the slide we had on Sarah, she had 22 years and she could get a decent pension. At 55 today, she would get, I can't recall what, 22.45 or something, a partial pension. She won't get the full 30 and out. But the key here is she will get an accrual-based pension. If you don't make 30, you're not getting 30 and out. That's a done deal. The accrual, if it goes up, that's going to benefit everyone. It will surpass the 30 and out benefit and be superior for people, whether they have 20, 22 years, etc. And most especially those that get close to age 62. Theirs will really go up. So this just points out the importance of the accrual and not just thinking of 30 and out, because I think it's a damn good question. A lot of people aren't going to make 30 years humping the package car.
Great. A little more bit of a technical question, but how does the basic bailout of the Central States Fund help with the negotiations with UPS to increase our pension benefits?
Yeah, I saw this question. This is a good question. The CEO of UPS never sent us a thank you card for the Butch-Lewis Act. The Butch-Lewis Act in UPS's own filings to the Securities and Exchange Commission saved the corporation $4 billion. $4 billion was saved when that passed. Why? If Central States is bailed out, they're not going to cut pensions. Therefore, UPS doesn't have to make up the difference because UPS has to pay you that whatever the pension is. If it's $4,000, they got to pay you $4,000. If Central States is paying half of it, they're off the hook for half of it. So that was actually a boon, not just to save workers' pensions, but to United Parcel Service. And it does mean, why can't they afford better pensions? You just saved money on that law, which passed less than 2 years ago.
Okay, switching gears, we've got a lot of questions about part-time pensions in the chat box. Ken, why didn't you talk about part-time pensions on this call? Are part-timers in a different pension fund? Can you clarify this?
Yes. Again, there are many pension plans. They all have different rules. If you're in the Western Fund, the part-timers are in the fund. Your years automatically couple up. 3 years part-time, 27 full-time, you have 30 years. You won't get as much accrual for your part-time years because maybe you were only working 20 hours a week. In this fund, these are totally separate pension plans with no interaction. Every part-timer in these states on this call, and everyone who used to be a part-timer, many of you, are in what's called the UPS Pension Plan. Sounds like it covers everyone at UPS. It doesn't. It covers part-timers. If you have 5 years or more in that plan, you qualify for a vested pension. So maybe you have 6 years part-time, 24 full-time. You're going to get 2 separate pensions, actually 3 because of central states. But unfortunately, they don't couple together. And that's not a good situation. It's the way it is. It's going to be very hard to correct that in this contract. The rules of this fund could be changed to admit your part-time years. It's a goal. And I think it's one worth looking at. The other thing about part-time pensions is presently the 30 and out, I think it's 1950. If some smart person knows differently, put it in the chat, please. And that is also in this contract, Article 34. So undoubtedly that will be raised. But that's something, not many let's face it, part-timers mostly don't work 30 years part-time. That's a small minority, but they're important. They've stayed with the company all that time. They deserve a decent pension. So the part-time pension should be increased. It's very cheap for the company. You know why? They're not paying it to many people. How many part-timers do you know with 30 years seniority? Not many. So those people deserve a good pension. The 25, 30, and 30, there's a 35 and out for part-timers too. I have a friend who got it. Those need to be increased in this contract. And a lot of people posted about part-time, their part-time years or their long-time part-timers. And we see that's an issue that needs to be taken up as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Another technical question. A member who asked, say I already have 35 years in right now as this contract is being negotiated. Will I still get the increase that is negotiated in the new contract? And how long will I have to work under the new contract to get that increase?
Okay, good question. They're all good questions. This is contractual. That is, it will say in the contract, okay, here's the new pension level. And I assume the 3,800 is going to go up. Everyone here wants it to go up. Make your voice heard. So let's say it says, let's go optimistic. It says $5,000. It will also say when this takes effect. Last contract, it took effect the next January 1, which would be, 5 months after August 1, the end of the year. That may be it. I don't know. That's a contract matter. The last contract also had a second increase a couple years later in 2020. So it could say we're going to increase this amount right away and this amount more. You will know in the contract when it takes effect. You can't assume it'll take effect on August 1 and just plan your retirement in August. But it's a very valid question. You expect an increase, you're looking to retire, you're going to wait till after August 1 and see what it looks like.
All right. So we have a question in the chat from Brother Jeff Moore. What do we do about this? What are some of the actionable things we can do in our buildings, in our area to raise the pension issue and fight to make sure we get the increase we deserve? So for that, I'm going to ask David Levine, our TDU staff director, to step in and give us some information.
Hi, great question. These were all good questions. But this is really, maybe it all kind of boils down to this, I think. We know the National Negotiating Committee is going to be making a demand for higher pensions, increasing the accrual in Article 34, increasing the 30 and out benefits. It's a key issue. But the company's going to be looking over the shoulder of the bargaining committee, and they're going to be seeing where do the members stand. They're doing this with all the issues that are at stake here in contract negotiations. Take like 22.4, for example. This is a demand. Eliminating the 22.4 classification is a key demand. It's on the table. The company knows by seeing all the activity by drivers and 22.4 standing together with RPCDs and part-timers that this has got to come out or they're not going to get a contract passed. We need to make the same thing happen on the pension issue. They've got to be looking over the shoulder of the bargaining committee and seeing people in the parking lot, seeing people going into work, talking about this issue, uniting around this issue, rallying around this issue in order to win the kinds of pension increases that we're talking about here. So what can be done practically? And maybe we can slide back to those materials that we have available. We have a contract campaign toolkit that is available to every single person on this call. It includes leaflets. Maybe we can get to that slide. It might be the next one. It includes petitions. It includes rally signs. And you can order all this stuff for free. You're going to get, you can either just go to our website or you can reply to the message that you're going to get after this call and fill out a form, order these supplies. We'll have a volunteer follow up with you, find out what you need, get it all mailed to you for free. You can gate it so people are informed about this issue. A lot of people don't know how their pension compares so unfavorably to other people. It's good for them to hear about it, get a little riled up, get a little angry. You can have people sign the petition, gate that. You can hold a parking lot meeting, and we've got the signs that you can use there, and we have talking points that you can use there. I know a couple of people asked in the Q&A about will this webinar be available? Answer, yes. We will post it tomorrow on our website, and you can share that and inform other people. But most importantly, the company needs to see people getting active. It's good for people to be knowledgeable. But if the company doesn't see people being united, then they're going to try to lowball the negotiating committee. So we've all got to be standing together regardless of classification, higher pensions for part-timers and full-timers, more full-time jobs, higher wages for full-timers and part-timers, eliminating the 22.4. We all know the strike issues. This is a strike issue. It's on the contract unity pledge card listed as a key issue, and we've got to make sure that the company sees it. This is a good question. That's how we make this actionable. That's what you can do, and hope you will do it. Fill out the form. We'll get in touch.